All right, so we're in Pirkei, chapter 3 of Pirkei Avos, and we are starting with a Mishnah. The Mishnah that I'm calling Mishna Yud Aleph, Mishnah number 11. Although for some it's Mishnah 10, and for some it's Mishnah 12, and for me it's Mishnah 11. But to find the Mishnah, you look on the source sheet or in your own Mishnah. It starts with the words Hu Haya Omer. He used to say. Who is the he in this sentence? He used to say. So it's the person who was speaking previously, which was Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, the great sage Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. He used to say as follows: Kol sheruach habrios nocha hemenu. Anyone for whom, here the translation I gave is one with whom men or people really are pleased. Ruach hamakom nocha hemenu. God is pleased. It really means a little bit more than that. It's not just pleased, but ruach is like a spirit, so that and nocha means like is pleasant, is good. So I guess the simplified translation is they're pleased with him. It means that they're in good spirits around him. They're or her. People find the person pleasant in their eyes. So then God finds them pleasant as well. But somebody who is not pleasant for people, people are not pleased with them. So then God is also not pleased with that person. Now this doesn't mean that we should, specifically try to please other people just so that they like us, because if other people like us, then God will like us. So that's not what this is trying to say, but it's, I think, in a more natural sense that if we are people who people find pleasant to be around, so then God will be pleased with us as well. Now the Midrash Shmuel opens by quoting from the Lev Avos, who infers from here that it's not about what people say about us, because sometimes people will say pleasant things about someone just to curry favor with that person, or to curry favor with other people. But words are not necessarily telling of whether a person is truly, pleasant to be around and pleasing in God's eyes. Don't bring a proof, he says, from the way that people speak about someone, but rather from again, we don't necessarily have the sense of this. Maybe on our own we do, but it's not really about what people say. It's about how people feel around someone, what's going on inside. That's what actually matters. What's in people's hearts, and if in people's hearts they find it pleasing to be with someone, then God will also find that person pleasing. It's interesting that observation, when compared to the verse in Proverbs, in Mishlei, I think it's in Mishlei, that it says, I don't remember the whole verse, but it says that you measure like silver by how refined it is, and then it says ish lefi mahalalav, a person according to his praise. So that's how you measure a person. Person's measured according to his praise. So the simple reading of that verse is actually, and this is how I think Rashi and others understand the verse, is based on what people say about someone. That's how you can measure them up. If people praise a person, then you can assume that person is actually indeed praiseworthy. Rabbeinu Yonah has a novel interpretation of that, and a very beautiful interpretation of that, actually, which is that, no, when it says a person is measured according to their praise, it's not according to how people praise them, but rather according to what they praise. You can tell the worth of a person by the way they, what they speak about, how they speak about things, what's valuable to them, what do they praise, and if they praise money and wealth and style and those types of things, the more material things, then that's, you can know that's what's valuable to them, that's what's important to them, and we can measure them that way. If a person praises spirituality, connection to God. So then Torah, we can evaluate them in that way. So so that actually, depending on how you understand that verse, either agrees with this or does not. The Avos again is pointing out that the Mishnah is specifically saying, you can't assume that the person is indeed pleasing just because people speak of a person positively. It's really about how people feel. Now, Rabbeinu Yonah, the Midrash Shmuel quotes from Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah again is one of the great medieval commentaries on Pirkei Avos and other works as well. But Rabbeinu Yonah he connects this verse with the passage in the Gemara in the Talmud, and he says that it's similar to what the Gemara says, that the quote, at least in the Midrash Shmuel, I didn't look it up in Rabbeinu Yonah itself, is very brief, but I believe he's referring to the Gemara in Maseches Yoma, in Tractate Yoma, where the Gemara says that it refers to the verse that Ve'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, right, in the Shema, that you should love Hashem, your God, you should love God, and the Talmud actually elaborates on that verse. There also, the verse is saying not just that you should love Hashem, but you should cause Hashem to be loved. One should cause others to love God. How do you cause others to love God? So the Talmud says that a person who learns Torah and models their behavior after great scholars, and they conduct themselves in business with nachas, calmly and nicely with other people, and so if a person like this is pleasant to somebody who's pleasant to deal with, and honest and fair and slow to anger, a person has good midos, has good character. So then the Gemara says, what do people say about that person? Ashrei Aviv Shalom Torah. Praiseworthy is that person's father that taught them Torah, or praiseworthy Ashrei Rabo Shalom Torah. Praiseworthy is their teacher who taught them Torah. And woe to people who don't have Torah. They're missing out. How beautiful are its ways. So and that's how the Gemara says, that's how you make God loved in the eyes of people. If you show people what it means to walk in the ways of God, to follow God's Torah, so then people will, as a result of the way that we conduct ourselves, people will be drawn after God and will come themselves to a love of God. That's the Gemara in Yoma. So Rabbeinu Yonah connects that over here, that if a person is conducting themselves in a way that people say, this is just a very fine person. That's this Mishnah. Ruach habrios nochaimanu. People find the person to be pleasant, to be fine, to be someone that they want to connect with. So then God is also pleased with that. Why? Because when people see such a person, then they also connect themselves to God, which is what God seeks, is that people should praise Him and connect to Him. So the Mishnah is it's not just that if people like me, then God probably likes me too. It's Rabbeinu Yonah is saying if people like me, if people find that an individual is a pleasant and upstanding and a person just that you want to know, sort of. So then that brings people to a love of God and the praise of God. That's what is pleasing before God. Okay. Alternatively, the Midrash Shmuel suggests a very, very, very different approach. Just in how to translate it, which is that when it says that Ruach Habrios Nocha Hemenu, the spirit of creations, literally people, but it's, the spirit of creations is Nocha, is pleasant because of you. So what it means is that as a result of our actions, of what we do, if other people have pleasantness in the world to come, so then God is pleased with that. So so the statement of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa here would be that if we bring pleasantness to other people because we bring them into the world to come, we connect them to a eternal reward, so then God is pleased with that. And what the Mishnah is telling us, according to this, is that we have to look out not only for ourselves in this world, in preparing ourselves for the next world, but also for our brothers and sisters. And the first thing, the flip side, the Mishnah says, right, is, and if the spirits of people are not pleasant as a result of us, so then God is not pleased. Now he points out, you might say, well, why was it necessary to give the flip side? Just say if the spirit of people is pleasant with, if in other words, if you help people come to the world to come, so then God is pleased. I could figure out the other side, right? For our on the same pagers. This isn't Rabbi Meir, who requires a two-sided condition, right? So why does the Mishnah have to tell us both sides of the coin here? So the Midrash Shmuel, he says, because you might have thought that okay, if I help people come to the world to come, if I elevate those around me, so of course that's a wonderful thing, and God is pleased with that. But if I don't, so you wouldn't say God's not pleased with that God is not pleased with him. Okay, he's not pleased with me, but he's not pleased with me. That's what you might have thought to say. If I'm doing my thing, right? And I am growing, and I spend, hours tucked away and in my corner, growing in my spirituality and connecting to God and praying and studying Torah, and I'm growing. Isn't God pleased with that? So Midrash says that yes and no. Of course he's pleased with that, but you're still missing something, and that's not pleasing to God. That is that the person says, I'm good, I'm fine, but he or she is ignoring everybody else, and ignoring the spiritual state of those around us. So that is not pleasing before God. It's not. It was necessary to speak out both sides of the coin. That if we help elevate others and bring them to the world to come, so then that is pleasing to God. That's what God wants from us and from them. He wants everybody to connect to their share in the world to come. But if I don't elevate those around me, if I don't try to elevate those around me, so it's not just okay, so God, you don't get this extra, reward, or that God is pleased with you, but maybe it's okay still. No, the Mishnah is saying it's not okay. God is unpleased with that. That's what the Mishnah is coming to tell us according to that. Okay, and just one more thought on this Mishnah that Midrash Shmuel mentions is that he quotes from Rabbi Yosef ibn Nachmias, and he points out that the Mishnah says anyone who the spirits of people are pleased with them, but it doesn't say the spirits of everybody, because you can't please everybody. It's if people in general are find you pleasant to be around, but you can't please everybody. And actually, if you're pleasing everybody, then there's probably something amiss. So he points out at the end of Megillas Esther, at the end of the book of Esther, so it talks about Mordechai, the very last verse, it says, he was Ratzui Lirov Echav. He was desired, he was appreciated by most of his brethren. What do you mean most of his brethren? Yeah, only most, not all. Mordechai was not, it wasn't, not everybody was happy with Mordechai and what he was doing. Most were happy with him. So, because he can't please everybody. And similarly, he says, I've never heard this one before, he says that went by Abraham, it says, God says, Lech lecha, go to the land that I will show you. And God says, Va'avarcha mivarchecha, and I will bless those who bless you. Now, mivarchecha is plural. So those who bless you in the plural. But then it says, umikalelcha arur. And I will curse the one who curses you. It's singular. Mikalelcha is singular. So he says that you'll have many people who bless you. You'll have one person who curses you always. I mean, you can count on that, Abraham. That's what God is telling Abraham. All those who bless you, I will bless. The one who curses you, I will curse. Because there's at least going to be one person who curses you. So because he can't please everybody. That's how he explains that. So this Mishna is saying, don't expect to please everybody. But if in general people find that you're pleasant and good, so then God will be pleased with that. In the Art Scroll, they quote a story or a line from Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, who is reputed to have told a student contemplating assuming a rabbinic post. He told him the following: a rabbi whose congregants don't want to fire him is not a real rabbi, but a rabbi whom they actually fire is not a mensch. So they should want to fire you, but not actually, want to do it. So it's like you have to be able to say things like it is. This is specific, to a rabbinic position, but the rabbi has to be able to say things like it is. And sometimes the congregants are not going to be happy with what the rabbi says. But that's part of his job, is to tell them, and is to correct their actions. So they can't love him for that. And but at the same time, they should respect him. So if they actually fire him, it means they don't respect him. So the rabbi has to kind of walk that tightrope of earning the people's respect and being able to correct or criticize when necessary, while at the same time and really it will rub people the wrong way, but out of the respect for the rabbi, they won't actually fire him. That's I think what he means by that quote. But the idea is that we can't please everybody. Actually, this comes up also in the comparison of Moshe and Aaron, Moses and Aaron. So when at both of their deaths, so when Aaron dies, it says that all of Israel mourned for him. And when Moshe dies, it says like Israel mourned for him, I think. It doesn't say all of Israel. And again, the commentaries point out this difference, and they say, actually, maybe Aaron pleased everybody, because that's actually what he did. He would go around making peace between people and kind of pleasing everybody. Telling people that so-and-so, if people were fighting with each other, Aaron would tell them, so-and-so really wants to make up with you. And he was this peacemaker. And so he actually maybe succeeded in pleasing everybody, but that's also because he wasn't the leader. Moshe, as the leader, couldn't please everybody. A leader just can't please everybody. And that's just the reality. A leader has to be able to stand up for what's necessary, principles, and they're never going to please everybody. Here, Rabbi Yosef ben Menachem is really saying that nobody should really be able to please everybody. We need to be principled in certain areas, and not everybody's going to love it. But our demeanor and our conduct should be, respecting enough that most people find us pleasant. Okay, a question was asked: Is this relate to why Aaron was involved in the golden calf? As a peacemaker, I think it could be related in terms of his personality. In terms of his personality, I think it's possible that they're related. It's interesting. Okay, so let's just summarize what we said about this Mishnah. So first of all, we mentioned that the Mishnah doesn't say whoever people say is pleasant or say is a nice guy. That's who God is pleased with. You can't base it on what people say. It's about how people feel about someone. If people find the person pleasant, then God will, we can assume that God also finds that person pleasant. But we elaborate on that with the idea of Rabbeinu Yonah, that it's more than that God, that if we're an example, a role model, a walking Kiddush Hashem, sanctification of God's name, so then that brings people to love of God. So if we are people who other people are just saying, wow, look at how those people conduct themselves, clearly God's Torah is formulative. It affects how people conduct themselves, and then that brings people to love God. That is where God is pleased with us, is that because we bring people to recognize Him and His Torah. And then we also mentioned the idea that the Mishnah could be understood to mean that the spirit of people is pleasant as a result of us, meaning because we bring them to the world to come. If we elevate people and inspire people and look out for them in terms of their spiritual needs, and we don't just work on ourselves. Of course, we have to work on ourselves, but we also ensure that other people have access to opportunities for growth and learning. So then God is pleased with that because we're helping them come to the world to come. And lastly, we said that you can't please everybody. It's people, Ruach HaBrios, it's not everybody's pleased with them, but people in general are pleased with us, find us pleasant, so that's pleasing before God. Okay. Comments or questions before we go to the next Mishnah? Okay, so the next Mishnah, what I'm calling Mishnah 12. Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinas Omer. Rabbi Dosa, the son of Harkinas, said, by the way, I just saw it noted, I think I saw this in the art scroll, that this Rabbi Dosa is not the father of the author of the previous Mishnah, which was Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. It's a different dosa. It's understood to be a different dosa. They figure that out from other sources and stuff. Okay, so he says, Shena shel shachris, morning sleep, sleeping in, basically. V'yayin shel tzaharaim, and midday or afternoon wine. V'sichas hayaladim, and children's talk, meaning adults engaging in children's talk. V'yeshivas batek niyasil shel amei haaretz, and sitting in the gathering places of Amei Haaretz. Amei Haaretz is ignorant people. Motziing es ha'adam min ha'olam. They remove or put a man out of this world. They take a person out of this world. So, how many things? We have 4 things. Sleeping in the morning, sleeping in, drinking in the afternoon, childish talk, and sitting amongst in the assemblies of the ignorant. Take a man out of this world. What does it mean? They take a person out of this world. So we'll have to see. We'll see. I think some different understandings of what that can mean. So I guess just on the most basic level. So we see that we talk about the morning. We talk about the afternoon. It makes sense that the end of the Mishnah is talking about the evening, just following that pattern. So it could be that this is just talking about making use of our time. If we sleep through the morning, so then we lose the morning, right? If we drink in the afternoon, and usually if a person's drinking, they're not very productive, then we lost the afternoon. Then on our way home, we stop in at the bar, to schmooze away and idle chatter. So then we lose the evening as well. Or we stop the kids on their way home from school and we schmooze with them about childish matters. So all of that, it's basically a wasted day, morning, afternoon, and evening. And in that light, we can understand they take a person out of this world, like meaning the person, is not making use of this world, basically, of their time. They've removed themselves from this world. They're not using their time in this world productively. We, of course, have 3 prayers that correspond to these times. We have morning Shachris, afternoon Mincha, evening Ma'ariv, and that kind of puts a perspective on how each time period of the day is to be dedicated for, to be used productively in serving God. But this speaks of a person that whiles away their time. Okay, so that's the thing on the most basic level. Another way to understand it removes a person from this world could be that it endangers a person. These types of activities endanger a person. Literally, they can cause a person to die. How so? So he says, sleeping in exercises our lazy muscle, right? It breeds laziness. That's a person who's lazy. They sleep the whole morning through. So now, if a person is lazy, so then they won't be able to put in effort to earn a living, and they'll end up, he says, having to resort to thievery, and they could get themselves killed as a result of that. So laziness can bring a person to be removed from the world, to die as a result of getting involved, and I think, nowadays it might be different kinds of thievery that the person might engage in, but a person starts off lazy, they're stuck, they find themselves, they haven't put in the effort to earn a living. They're not able to because they're too lazy. So they look for shortcuts, and shortcuts usually involve breaking the law, and that could get a person into big trouble, and can be dangerous. So that's the first part. The second is drinking through the afternoon. So again, drinking can be dangerous in different ways. He focuses on the effect it has on a person's body, and he describes certain 16th century effects of alcohol use, how he views it. But we know that alcohol can be dangerous in different ways. And another way also, by the way, that he mentions is a person ends up wasting their money. A person becomes an alcoholic, they spend all their money, and they're in the same place as the person who's lazy because they don't have any money. They have to resort, especially with an addiction, you have to resort to whatever means you can to be able to feed the addiction. So then they end up getting themselves into trouble. What about the chatter of children? So he interprets this to mean taking the advice of young people rather than more experienced people can get a person into trouble. And he notes the classic story in Sefer Malachim in the Book of Kings, where Rechavam, the son of Shlomo, took advice from the young advisors instead of the older advisors to basically to overtax the people, and the people ended up revolting against him. And his mistake was only seeking advice from the young and not from the old. I think, sometimes we have this sense that young people have creativity and energy, and they see things in a more modern light. which are all true, but life experience is also, we can't argue with life experience and the value of that, and being able to speak to someone for advice, somebody who has life experience. They may not have as much creativity, but they can at least put things in perspective for us and help us come to the right conclusions because of that life experience. So sometimes turning to the chatter of children, the advice from the young, can get a person into trouble. And finally, the fourth thing is assemblies of the ignorant. So for that, he suggests that included in that would be people who are scoffing and mocking things, and when you do that, so then you make enemies, and when you make enemies, so then so that could also put a person into dangerous situations. Besides for that, he adds, the person is not studying Torah. Torah is a tree of life, and so maybe more conceptually, philosophically, person is removing themselves from the world because they're removing themselves from the tree of life. So actually, that really, all of these things can, a person who spends their whole day, sleeps in, then drinks the afternoon through, and then hangs out with scoffers in the evening, or whatever, they don't have to be scoffers, but goes to the bar in the evening to just schmooze the night away. So there's no time to learn Torah. Clearly, they're very busy. So they are disconnecting themselves from the tree of life, and that's how they're removed from the world. And finally, another way to read from this Mishnah is this is talking actually about the stages of a person's life. So there's there's the simple reading of the Mishnah, and that's certainly true also, but we can understand the morning, the afternoon, and the evening to not be in moments in a day, but in a lifetime. And there's the morning of a person's life when they're young, and there's the afternoon when they're kind of in their prime, in their physical prime, and then there's the evening as a person's life is waning, and the idea is, first of all, don't sleep through the morning, right? Don't sleep through the morning of life. When a person's young, they have to get up and wake up, and don't waste those young years, which are so important for a person's development, for gaining experience, education, etc. And then there's the sort of what he calls the Amida, where a person's standing. It's the middle of a person's life, the prime, we could call it. And he says, don't drink that away. And then there's what he calls the Yerida. There's where you start to go down the ramp as a person is aging, and I guess their body is slowing down. So that time also, a person can still be productive, especially we're blessed with the Torah, and the person can continue to be productive even as they're physically less capable, but they can still study Torah until a ripe old age. And sometimes, though, they just want to relax, and they just want to schmooze. And the Mishnah tells you, don't do too much of that. Maybe a little bit, but not too much, because even in the golden years of a person's life, as their body's slowing down. But hopefully, if their mind is still at full force, so they can still be very productive in terms of working on their own development and studying Torah. The Midrash Shmuel, that idea he was quoting from Rabbi Moshe Alshakar. Now he adds his own little detail, his own knetch, as they say in Yiddish. He adds that when a person's young, so the Yetzer Hara the evil inclination isn't as strong yet. It hasn't won us over yet. And so when a person's young, we say, wake up. That's our rebuke of them. We just have to wake them up a bit, and that can get a person going when they're young, because the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, hasn't established such a firm grip yet. However, as a person gets older and they become more set in their ways, and the Yetzer Hara has this firm grip on them, so then it's much more difficult to. Can't just wake them up. It's not. A wake-up call is not necessarily going to do it. It might, but the Yetzer Hara's grip is much more firm. And it's like a person's drunk at that point. He says, like a drunk person, he quotes from Mishlei. Mishlei, it says about a drunk person, they hit me, I was not hurt. They beat me, I didn't feel it. When will I wake up? So basically that when a person's drunk, you can hit them, over and over again, and they still won't get the point. And the afternoon of our lives, the middle of our lives, can be compared to that, where we are already established in our ways. We're setting our ways. This is who I am, and I can't change. And of course, that's the worst thing we could tell ourselves. No matter who we are, we can always change. We can always improve. But that's the drunkenness of the afternoon is where we're kind of set. It's much harder to change. So in the morning, we just have to wake somebody up. In the afternoon, it's like a person's drunk. You can beat them, and they're not necessarily going to change. And the Mishna is making us aware of that. And if we're aware of it, then it can help us in actually taking a grip on ourselves, on our Yetzer Hara, and attempting to overcome it. So here we shared on this Mishnah a few ideas. Number one, the Mishnah describes on the most simple level 3 times of the day. So a person sleeps in through the morning, they drink through the afternoon, they spend the nighttime just talking but nothing productive throughout the day. So that's motziin es min ha'olam. That removes a person from the world. In other words, they are not accomplishing anything in this world. They are misusing their time. And we have 3 prayers a day that can set us straight, that can frame for us what the morning should look like, what the afternoon, what the evening, by having Shachris, Mincha, Ma'ariv, 3, the morning prayers, the afternoon prayers, evening prayers. So we can, not that we're praying the whole time, but that can frame for us what each of those periods should be, in that they should be, every period of the day should be used in service of God. Number 2, we said that it can be, the idea that it can remove a person from this world could be understood on a practical level, that it could be dangerous. These things could get a person killed ultimately. Again, it's not like every time, and it's more describing like a slope, to be aware that one thing leads to the next. Laziness, sleeping in, can lead a person to have challenges in earning a living, and that could lead a person to be involved in criminal activity, which could be dangerous. I mean, obviously it's wrong on its own, but also it could be dangerous. Drinking could be dangerous on its own, the effect that the drinking has on the person, but also in that they spend all their money on feeding their addiction. And then taking advice from the young instead of more experienced people could be dangerous. And finally, hanging out with the wrong crowd could be dangerous because you end up fighting and get people upset at you, and that could also be actually dangerous. And then finally, we said that these can actually correspond not to the moments, only to the moments of the day, but to periods of our life. We have the morning, we have to wake up when we're young. We can't drink away the afternoon in the middle of our life, and we can't spend the evening of our life, the sunset years, just relaxing, just schmoozing, but they actually have to be used also productively the best of our abilities. Okay, we will hold there. As I mentioned, we won't have class next week, but God willing, we'll be back in 2 weeks and we'll do the next mission.
Thank you, Rabbi Yashkach. It's good to see
You're
you.
welcome.